The first step is conversation. So that's what you're asked to engage in over the next few months within your parish. There's already been conversation at the diocesan level. That's what led to the goals, the assumptions, the criteria. But now, and really most importantly, it goes out to you. So the bishop said today to diocesan staff, I like to be hands-on, I like to be involved, but I need to step away because I'm asking the people around the diocese to have the conversation now. So the conversation will be around parish self-assessment first, and then within cohorts, talking with other parishes about those models and about the evaluation process, etc. The conversation will lead to a suggestion of a particular model or models. So we've talked about those 5 models of linked, partnership, merged, pastoral, administrator, in solidum team. So you will make that suggestion, that yellow form we looked at before, in May, with a rationale. And I'll say right up front to you right now, in that form, 2 important things. It's not enough to say what's the model and what could it look like in our area, but it's crucial that you say why. Give your best thinking to that. Why do you think this is important? Because I promise you it will be reviewed by the Planning Commission. So what do you recommend or suggest and why? And you'll also be asked to sign your name to that suggestion. Some years ago in another diocese, we didn't ask everybody to sign their name, and then there was something before the commission and people said, well, I never said that, I didn't agree to that, and we didn't even have their signature. So you will be asked to say, what do you think? Why do you think it? And to put your name on the dotted line. So conversation, suggestion leads to step 3, preliminary recommendation. The Planning Commission is meeting June 6th, 7th, and 8th, 3 days on retreat to work with all the information from all the cohorts, and they will make preliminary recommendations. And just like you, they have to say back to you why. So they might say, well, we agree with your suggestion, and you just did such a great job, thank you very much. Or they might say, with respect, we disagree with your suggestion, and we recommend, maybe it's a different model or configuration. They have to also say why to you. Conversation, suggestion, preliminary recommendation, conversation, response. Then it goes back to the Planning Commission, which would be next October. So really only 10 months from now. And they will then meet again on retreat, and they'll make final recommendations to the bishop. And then the bishop, step 7, in terms of the decisions, has several months to, as he says, pray about it, cry about it. He also, by canon law, must consult with the Presbyteral Council if there's any merger possibilities. That's not been done in some dioceses. They skip that step at times, and the Vatican has sent it back. So he must consult. And he can consult with anybody else he wants. He must consult with the Presbyteral Council. And those decisions will be announced either next December or January. December 2012, January 2013. And then there'll be a period of preparing for that 8th step of implementation. Now you might forget what I've said tonight, so we put it right on the front of the binder. So if you look at the front of the binder, you might even take this out and put it by your medicine cabinet. Conversation, suggestion, preliminary recommendation, conversation, response, final recommendation, decision, implementation. And just to put that into a time frame, and this is also, it's the next page, I closed my book, but it should be about page 6 in there. Let me go back here. Yeah, on page 6. So just to put this all together, this first part, September to November, we're down now to the 4th, the Planning Commission met on Monday, the training sessions are happening now. You have 8 to 10 weeks to do the parish self-assessment, remembering that Christmas shows up, so we know you're not going to meet for a period of time, but you'll have those bunch of weeks. Then in March, there'll be an additional 6 training sessions, so I'll meet back with you to do the cohort training, and you have generally about 8 weeks to complete the cohort work, with the cohort suggestions due May 18th, and a draft due to me the week before. Again, my job is not to tell you what to suggest, but it is to help you be as successful as you can be. So sometimes people do a great job, our cohort teams, on the model, and they forget to give the rationale, or they make no reference to any of the goals. And what I'm thinking about is how can the work you do be best received by the Planning Commission. So I might just then offer you some thoughts, but it's in the end, you're the ones who decide what your suggestion is. So that's in May. In June is the Diocesan Planning Commission's preliminary recommendations. By September, your response is back, September 28th. In October, the final recommendations. By December 2012 or January 2013 is the announcement of the bishop's decision. And then there's a chance to move from there into implementation. Let me just kind of skip over page 7 and 8 for a moment to go to the last page in this section, which is your role. And then we'll take some questions, and then I'm going to send you off into small groups pretty soon. So what's your role as a core team? So page 9 in the first section, the last page, or the second to the last section. So the core team, again, pastor or pastoral administrator +4. What's your role? There's 6 roles you have to lead the parish through the process. You lead them in listening to each other. You lead them in talking together. You lead them in giving input into what ultimately will be the parish self-evaluation. You're responsible for that evaluation of yourselves according to the criteria. You're accountable for a parish summary report, which I'll describe to you in a moment, and the data verification. So you can just write on one of those sheets. You could say these numbers aren't correct, or this is our mass count in this year, and then you need to fill in that last category in the data verification, which is the trend. What do you see as the trends, given your numbers? Number 4, to participate in the cohort planning and in suggesting a model or models for how to work together in the future, to respond to the preliminary recommendation, and to contribute to implementing what is ultimately asked of you. There's also a role for the core team that I'm going to ask you to choose tonight if you can, the core team chair and the core team secretary. So you see there are job descriptions there for both. In general, I suggest that roles not be filled by the pastor or pastoral administrator. They have a few things on their plate already. So what helps us is we will be sending updates to all of you, everybody on the core team, at every 2 weeks by email. If you've already given us your email address or you give it to us tonight, we'll be continually giving you updates as more information becomes available, like those projections, future projections of priests. We're not going to wait till March. We'll send them out to you. If there's other good ideas that come up, we'll send them out to you. But so the role of the chair and the secretary is another job, and you'll have that at your tables, right? Let's see. Yeah, so you've already done the blue sheets, so there's 2 other sheets. This is the sheet I'll be asking you in a few minutes when you go to the tables, after you stop by Alice and Tom and friends to get some good cookies and all the rest. I need you to fill out this one. This is who would be the core team chair and secretary. And we'll get in a minute. This is the one about the cohorts. We'll get to that in just a minute. But let me say a word about that. Last night at some of the tables, people said, if we have a secretary, can we still ask somebody else to take the minutes at our meeting so that the secretary can participate in our conversations? And yes, I mean, again, get more people involved. So whatever your best thinking is, and because you're the chair doesn't mean you have to facilitate all the meetings. You can, pass the baton around. So I'd like you to feel creative, like do it in a way that makes sense for you. Don't feel like you're locked up in just one way to do it. So that's your role as the core team. The core team chair, schedule meetings, ensure there's a working agenda. You can read all that. The role of the secretary, keeping notes or see that minutes are taken. Ultimately, we're going to be knocking on that person's door saying, we haven't gotten the form in yet. Have you sent that in? I think I'll save all the communication piece for the end of the night, so I'm not going to go there now. So let's do this. We're just going to go with a couple of colors, and then we're going to pause so you can get a little break, and then have some conversation at table, because I actually have 3 requests of you at table. But I want to now do a little color walkthrough. If you join me in the 3rd section, it's called long and short form. I mentioned before that we've given you 3 options of how to evaluate your own parish. All these are based on the criteria. So the first, called the short form, now you might quibble, it's 22 pages, so you might not think that's short, but it is shorter than the 29 pages of the blue forms. But the short form is a way of looking at your parish. And some parishes want to say, this fits us better, we can do this. So I'll just use one example. If you join me in this one on page 5, page 4 and 5 of the green, just for a moment. So I want you just for a moment thinking of yourselves sitting back in your parish at a core team meeting, and you're looking at the sacramental life of your parish. So for each section, there's a prayer already provided to you to ground your conversation in prayer. That's on page 4, but in each of the sections, there's other prayers for you to use. Or you can use the prayer from tonight, or you can use another prayer that's seasonal for you. But we really suggest you begin in some prayerful reflection. Then the sacramental life of the parish, there's a few words about what that means at the top. Then you see the 3 criteria. If something is okay, or a plus sign if you're doing it really well, or a minus sign if it needs improvement. And I'll just pick for now, let's pick criteria 2. We'll look at that in the green and the blue. The sacrament of penance, the anointing of the sick are celebrated regularly in the parish. Okay? Yeah, we're doing it really well. We could use some improvement there. So you assess that RCA is the formation experience for adults. What do you think? Enriching sacramental prep is available for all sacraments. On the next page, various forms of prayer are fostered. Funerals are celebrated. So basically in the short form, with each criteria, there are indicators, and then you would respond, okay, plus, minus. Now let's look at the same thing in the blue form. It's one page later, I think. I think it's page 6 and 7. Let's see. Yeah, so 6, but actually let's begin back on page 4 of 29 in this one. You'll see again, there's prayer. So you come to that area, you're invited into a prayerful reflection on page 4. We're in sacramental life again, but now let's go to criteria 2, which is listed on page 6. So now the same indicators are there as before, but in the long form, and parishes use the long form sometimes when they say, we haven't done planning in our parish in forever. We want to really use this for ourselves to do some more in-depth planning. Or sometimes parishes will say, we're really doing good in a couple of areas. We don't need to spend a lot of time. So they'll do the short form in a couple of areas, and they'll do the long form in a couple of areas. We call that a combo form. So when I said you have 3 options, you have the short form, the long form, or a combo form. But let's just use criteria 2 again. Now, instead of just saying okay or plus or minus on the sacrament of penance, you could say, there's room there to say, well, what's our present activity? What are we doing right now in that area? And is it going strong? Is it adequate? Needs help? So you kind of rank yourselves. And then in the right-hand column, some notes for planning. You might say, we need to get a coordinator of sacramental prep. So the long form simply gives you a more detailed opportunity, if you will, to look at your parish. Does that make sense? So the 3 choices would be the green form, or the blue form, the short or the long, or some combination of those. It's your choice. It's whatever makes sense to you. What you're asked to do is turn in the end result of that. So one last form, and then we're done with colors for tonight. If you turn to the next section, I heard that, please. I'll try to be done real quick. That's okay. The pink form. Okay, so this is color night. the green or the blue form, and now the pink form. Once you're done with your evaluation, in some respects, I think this is as significant as either the green or the blue, because it's your chance to speak in your words about your parish. So look at the very first area there. You're asked in 50 words or less to describe the unique spirit of your parish. The next area, after all your evaluation of your parish, what are your 3 greatest strengths? What do you think you're best at? The next area, after all your evaluation, what are the 3 areas where you most want to improve? Then if you turn the page, you're asked to say, how are you staffed to accomplish your mission? Paid staff, unpaid staff. So who's there doing the work to help the mission be realized? And then finally, and actually my personal favorite for you is at the bottom of page 3. After you've done all the rest of the work, you've held some meetings to gather people together, you've collected lots of input, you've completed those evaluations. The last thing there says, is there anything else you want the Planning Commission to know about your parish? And I've seen it again and again how it has an influence on the Planning Commission. So you might say, yeah, we have a particular geographic reality you ought to know about us. Or we have particular traditions that are really important to us. Or our part of the diocese has certain challenges that we want to make sure you understand when you review our suggestion, etc., etc. So whatever you think is important. And you're not limited, by the way, to this space. Everything in this book will be on the diocesan website beginning next week. And all you need to do is to go there and then you'll download these forms. They'll be in Word format, so if you want to write 2 pages of what you want them to know, you got 2 pages of space. So that'll be beginning next week that they'll be on there. You can work with these now. But you'll be asked actually to turn these in electronically as well. So we're trying not to kill any more trees than we need to do that. So there's something more at the very end I want to come back to on communications, but I'm going to skip it now and the data to ask you this. And we'll take a little break and give you until about 20 after to do this. So I'd ask you in your table conversation to decide on a core team chair and secretary, and you have the one form, the salmon-colored form. If you would, to fill that out tonight. You're in the central region, so if you'd put that there. The second thing is that you're asked to suggest cohort partners with rationales. So this form, there's 1 per table, it basically says, who do you think you ought to be talking to when you get to the next phase? And you might say in scenario 1 here, well, we could talk to 5 parishes, and here's our reason why that would make sense. In the next scenario, you might say, well, maybe we just talk to 3 parishes, and you offer that thinking with your rationale. And if you have a third suggestion, you can put it on the back. So that's the second thing. And the third thing I ask you to focus on is scheduling your next couple core team meetings, maybe 1 or 2 in December before we get lost for Christmas, maybe the first one into January. Okay? So that's a lot of information to you to digest. By the clock there, we're at 5 of, so there's some cookies and punch over here. You're welcome to that. And then I'll call you back 8:15 or 8:20, given where you are. Okay? Thank you very much.